welcome. These will be my thoughts on The Flash, Season 1, Episode 15, Out of Time. The episode is rated TV-14, so this video will be, there will be spoilers for the Arrowverse leading up to and including this episode, and another episode that I absolutely loved. I'll try to keep it more or less chronological. So much to get to, let's dive right in. So, the bowling date that was not to be a date. Yeah, like they do a great job with the acting and editing of underlining, basically like Barry and Iris are kind of in denial about how their relationship is, they're not really behaving like two people who are dating other people. And the, especially that bit where she like touches his face and it's like, wow. And yeah, the detail that yeah I'm blanking on the name right now. My wrist is too sort of check, but yeah, her boyfriend Joe's partner is he starts not really talking to her very much and not kissing her and things like that. Very, very typical cishet white male behavior. Instead of just openly communicating, just yeah. I mean, I understand not saying it in that specific scene, but she has to, get it out of him. It's like pulling tooth. Now, other than that, yeah, I think that is that right. And also the detail about, you never told me you like bowling. Sure. And let's see. I'm gonna miss, because this definitely does feel like the end, at least for now. It's not impossible that it happens later, but yeah, I don't think Linda and Barry are going to be a couple after this episode, and it really is too bad because they are very, very cute together. And the let's see, I think the next thing is the coroner's office. Yeah, or was that the first thing? I forget, but yeah, the yeah, the thing about the coroner starts to say, cause of death, murder, and then it's Mark who finishes the line because he's there about a murder. And yeah, it's just so cool seeing this thing of like, the brother, and he is much better at using his powers, and the yeah, I mean, part of it is the thing of having had so much longer to practice. And that's a really cool concept because, it's one of those things of like, if you have a character who can control the weather, you don't want to just see one, and they're like, you don't want to see them just one time and having not quite mastered their powers. I love the detail that both of them, and Joe calls this out, both of them said they're like gods. And oh, actually, come to think of it, I think the very first thing we saw was the flashback. And yeah, good job on that. A little bit of characterization for the relationship and such. And yeah, like, it really is no wonder that, I'm afraid I forget his name right now, but Mark's brother, that he thought that Mark was dead, considering, yeah. And yeah, the, let's see, so there's the, yeah, silent alarm at the coroner's office. And, you've got the line, why would anyone break into a morgue? I don't know. Ran out of corpses, I guess. And they, yeah, the we get of the captain, I think he is, and Barry, yeah, not the best relationship experiences and such. And yeah, Barry, of course, he can tell Joe this, but he can't exactly tell the rest of them. He's like, so what the weapon was here. It was, that thing that happens when water gets like really, really cold? Yes, it's ice. And, it's like, oh, hail no. It's hail? And that is genuinely, yeah, because like, and what was the line, like the size of tennis balls, yeah, that is a thing that could absolutely, those things can get heavy at that kind of, yeah, that's not something you see every day, except in certain comic books, obviously. And I appreciate them bringing up, this can't be Snart, because yeah, someone had to say it, and it is the thing of like, I mean, we know it's not Snart already because we saw, but even so, like, yeah, someone, because it's distinct enough that it couldn't be. I am really, really looking forward to more Snart, for very obvious reasons that I spelled out in my last video on, in my video on the last episode that he was in. Anyway, that brings us to the yeah, I think the very next thing is when Cisco and Dr. Wells. It's genuinely sad. Cisco's never going to be able to fix things with his family. That's yeah. But yeah, they're watching Buster Keaton, and they say the thing that everyone who watches enough Buster Keaton does. The man was a genius. I need to watch more Buster Keaton. I've definitely watched more Chaplin and Laurel and Hardy, but I've been very, very impressed by Keaton. Like, it's really no wonder that people still praise all this time after. And yeah, the thing of, you're missing the movie. Yeah, I think the conversation might be more important, but I mean, in fairness, I'm actually pretty sure I've done the exact same thing when someone was trying to talk to me about my problems. So. And I think the next thing might be when, yeah, so there's the, yeah, the captain says that, they gotta protect Joe from Mark. And, they have the thing about, like, they agree that they can't tell Iris because that would wipe that smile right off her face. And then, Joe is like, we were getting lunch. And Barry's like, I feel like that's the opposite of what we were doing, but okay, if you insist. And yeah, the line about, it's actually been pretty quiet around here, which is funny not just for this situation and episode, but for the show in general. Like, I feel like they've had their hands full pretty much since the pilot, And oh right, the bit with I was not sure they were going to get to that this early, because I do believe I know what is happening. I guess just in case I won't say, but yeah, it I don't know. Yeah, for now I'm not gonna say, but yeah, the bit where he runs really fast, and yeah, for a second it's like, is that Reverse Flash? No, it doesn't quite look like Reverse Flash next to Flash, and by the end of the episode we have our answer. And yeah, the thing about, like, well, it's like a speed mirage, and then by the end, yeah. Now I think that does get us to the drive. And I love the way, because like, I didn't pick up on it immediately, but yeah, after like some number of seconds, I was like, there sure is a lot of rain right, like outside the car. We can tell through the windows and such. Didn't really look like it was that bad. Like just before they started driving, really, really nicely done. And yeah, the characters also realize, and it's like, well, let's check the radio. Let's hear when meteorologists think it'll be over, or failing that, maybe they'll say something that turns out to absolutely not be the case. I'm just making the joke everyone does around this. I try not to blame them. Listen, it's a difficult job, The weather's that one thing that everybody talks about, but no one does anything about. There. Now I've done two extremely stereotypical jokes about this exact situation. Anyway, the the exact situation where you're being chased by a metahuman and they make a rainstorm specifically for you. It's like that cartoon where the rain cloud is specifically over this one bit, or Truman Show, I guess. But yeah, they stop the car and yeah, holy crap, really, really tense. He just barely gets him out of the way of the lightning strike. And yeah, the car had just 2 weeks left until retirement. I think the next thing is when the Iris has the conversation with her boyfriend, and the thing about, I love that, so yeah, there are several things. So one thing I love about this is once she does, start the conversation, he does engage with her. He would be really frustrating character if he kept saying, oh, there's nothing, because listen, I am a cishet white man. I grew up, as a child and teenager around a bunch of them, a bunch of others. If you don't think that cishet young white men don't also do the thing that so many misogynists accuse women of being the only ones to, I appreciate maybe sometimes they do, but in my experience, men are way more likely to, maybe especially like as children and teenagers, haven't experienced that as much more recently, thankfully. But like, yeah, there was so much of like, I don't want to talk about it kind of thing of like, it's just like, can we just air this out so we can move on, please? And then when I would talk to, women and girls, yeah, they would come right out and say, listen, this is the problem. And I don't know, in my personal experience, most of the time, if a woman or a girl is not coming right out and saying what the problem is, it's because she told you already and you refused to do something about it, or maybe like said, no, that's not really a problem, or that sort of thing. And it's like, you really expect her to be vulnerable with you every single time if that's how you behave in response. Like, just anyway. Yes, so so that's one of the things. Another is that he does have the emotional intelligence to come right out and say, so the thing about, he says it's you and Barry, and she's like, Barry's always going to be part of my life, which is one of those things, and I do, I respect, I'm not going to pretend like it's never the case. Sometimes women also don't fully realize how they feel, or not quite willing to admit, because that is what's happening here. And it is technically the case for Barry as well. It's the two of them who are not willing to acknowledge what's happening here. Both Linda and Iris's boyfriend are perfectly willing to come right out and say, he needs a little bit of a push first, but yeah. And he does specify, I'm not saying that you cannot be friends with Barry. I'm saying the way things have been between the two of you recently is something I'm not comfortable with. And he also says, you're my girlfriend, we live together. One day I'd like you to be more than my girlfriend, this whole, so really laying it out. And by the end of the episode, she makes her decision, I feel like, or I says, yeah, I don't know. It's, sometimes comic book media can get very soap opera-y. I guess it's possible that she's going to say that it can't be her and Barry. And yeah. Right. Also, I really appreciate that Joe can be so. This is. I might have to rename Joe as Joe Chill because he is remarkably calm. Right. He's like chuckling. Like, you're asking your stepdad for help with the girl you're in love with, who is his daughter and his partner's partner. And I think the next, yeah, and so we have the bit with the captain insisting that now Joe has to stay at the station, which we find out later is still not quite enough. And I think that is when we have the yeah, it's somewhere around here that that Cisco talks to Caitlin. And yeah, it's great that at first she doesn't get any response, and then she's like, okay, I'll watch every episode of The Walking Dead with you. Which, like, I mean, honestly, I am. Let's see. I think the last one I finished was season 6. So far, I'm loving it. So that I don't know. I think she might like it. But yeah, I like the idea that yeah. So like earlier, I apparently off screen, he asked her that, and she said she would think about it or something, and now she thinks that's why he's giving silent treatment or something. And yeah, they talk about Dr. Wells and get the yeah, he suggests that maybe she delay him. And I think that's when we get the scene where so Iris, well, let's see. No, because we have the bit with Mason pointing out his theory, which definitely reporters notice patterns. And we also have the thing about like he also realized, other than the missing person, which he thinks is a murder, he also couldn't help but notice all the time that Barry and Dr. Wells spend together. And I think that so then we also have Linda and Iris talking, and she also comes right out and says, that's things are and really really good point, and something I've heard from other that is a true thing about journalists. They look for the thing that people aren't saying. Now, I and she says something along the lines of, I thought that was just that weird thing women sometimes do to each other. And, once again, I'm not saying women never do that to each other. I would also just note that is also something guys do to other guys. Yeah. Now, let's see. I think, does that pretty much bring us to the, and the thing about, it was nice breaking the habit, not doing that. And he notices that she's checking her watch, and, he wanted the coffee to go and asks her to change it to go. And she turns back and he's gone, but the chair remains. And like I don't think he's going to be able to hide everything from her now, but I mean, I figure it might be a little while before she and Barry realize he killed Cisco. And very clever with it was a hologram. That's how I had that thing. And he reveals that he can, essentially clone himself for the And I really appreciate that Cisco doesn't try to run, because like he understands, it would just be it would feel a little sad in a way that the scene isn't meant to. Like it's sad that he even says, I really do like you, Cisco, but and then points out to me, you've been dead for what did he say, century or something. So And yeah, 15 years he's been, yeah. And he needs Barry's speed to return. Yeah, that is, that does explain why he is both working with him and also, the fighting was testing him. He's seeing and giving him something to aspire to, so that because it's, evidently he doesn't feel like it's going quite fast enough, which makes sense. Difficult to wait for so long. And the let's see. Yeah, I think that does bring us to the, so Joe and his partner, at first Joe was intending to Joe alone, but yeah, they together search, and he's knocked out the window. Very, very cool. Like, I believe it went to an ad, or originally, I mean, I'm watching these off a box set, but that's a really good way to get the audience to stick around. Especially because we don't see the landing, and then he does afterwards explain the, and I think that might be one of the reasons why this has a TV-14 instead of TV-PG. He presses on the, or squeezes or something, the wound, which, yeah, that would hurt so much. And yeah, he is indeed also going to hurt Iris. And a tsunami, having to stop a tsunami, like, they really do manage to just top themselves. Like, I thought it was big when it was, I can never remember, hurricane or tornado, or, yeah. I'm sorry to my, what kind of class did I learn about that? Geography? I don't remember anymore, but, yeah. Mixed it up at least once in class, got it right during the final exam, forgot in the decade plus since. Now, I think that does. But yeah, and calling Caitlin, and she's about to tell him about Wells, and the also just love the line about, like, you need to stop a tsunami, huh? Well, I guess a wall of wind if you can run fast enough, but I'm not sure you can run fast enough. And that is, of course, yeah, because he's pushing himself harder than ever before, because Iris is right there. And that was also, yeah, they have the conversation and a kiss, and he has no choice but to reveal to her. And I'm genuinely not sure. So I don't, personally, right now at least, I don't think she's going to, I don't think she's going to tell anyone, but I guess this might mean she's going to have to work really hard to keep others from realizing as well, and that could be a problem. Yeah, right. And other than that, we do of course have the, fantastic tease there at the end, and they did a great job on, because, like, as soon as you see it, you immediately understand. Yeah, this genuine, that this is the other night. This is the thing that, yeah. So, working really, really hard not to theorize, but I guess I'll just briefly note. So basically, either he just traveled back in time, or what we've seen in almost the entire episode has actually been the copy. Those are probably my main theories for now. The speed mirage. Anyway, yes, I think because there's just enough. There's literally no way that those exact same things were. I mean, other than the fact that it's like suddenly nighttime, like an 80s music video or something. But yeah, you've got those two people. Their dogs are barking, which I guess means that the people are really hungry. And you've got the sign spinner. You've got the woman who's gonna get home late, or so. There was something like that. That's, yeah, very, very clear. And you know, it's a good bit of setup and payoff, because I did not realize what it was setting up there. Yeah. No, yeah. I think that almost covers. Right. So the conversation they have where, you know, the thing about Becky. Well, Becky was horrible for you. So you're saying Linda's Becky material? And, you know, you have the thing about she's not right for you. Well, who is? See, that's the thing. Because sometimes when someone says, I don't think that person's right for you, what they really mean is, we should be together, you know. And yeah, as she lists the positive attributes of Linda, one of them is hot. And at that point, I did find myself thinking, I mean, it's a CW show. Everyone's hot. Really appreciated the thing with, like, you know, I'm not saying that this is the first time we see the captain be, like, a good person, but genuinely, like, he actually dives in front. You know, he does the Secret Service dive. And yeah, by the end of the episode, you know, unclear if he'll ever walk again. So this is, yeah. Loved the bit with Joe's partner, you know, giving a rousing speech to the rest of the cops. And the wand was also, you know, the wizard's wand and the weather wizard. I wonder who is going to come up with the names, unless the episode is undone. If we really have been following Barry's copy, and this, and he now has another chance to fix everything, knowing what's going to, or wait, or does he know? Yeah, I'm so fascinated to find out more. I know I've said it before, but I really love time manipulation stories. They're some of my favorite sci-fi. I think I already plugged recently, but if you haven't already, Philip K., whose last name starts with a D, and I don't think I can say on a TV14 rating that I'm self-imposing. Fantastic. You know, problematic, but some really fantastic stories, including some about time manipulation. And I think that, I feel like there's at least one more thing that I really want to make sure to say. But what was it? Let's see. The yeah, the wand. I loved the way that, you know, it was placed right there, and Joe is like, I know, I won't step too far away from it, and it technically doesn't. But then suddenly Mark is there, and, you know, Cisco makes sure to place the call and everything, and the yeah, the way that they make sure that the wand is very clearly in shot, both when we're seeing Joe and when we're seeing Mark. Because, like, even if Mark doesn't realize that it's a weapon against him, like, if Joe makes a sudden move, we know that, like, you know, we've already seen how fast he can use his powers. And Joe also realizes this is a really dangerous situation, and yeah. And the captain ends up, El Capitan, with his pop gun, ends up in the hospital. And we meet his partner, his fiancée. And the fact that apparently the captain does speak well of Barry, that really is, I'm here for it. That's genuinely sweet. He's doing tough love. It's not that he hates Barry, because, like, for a little bit I was genuinely not entirely sure, you know. And yeah, you know, the fact that the captain is like, you know, we all remember, you know, your first partner. His pen has never been the same since his death. And yeah, the bark and bite thing about, okay, it's a very intense bark. And I will say, I suppose, if to me it felt a tiny bit performative, though I 100% am, you know, politically I agree with it, you know. But the way that, you know, so the I think nurse is saying, doctor maybe, I'm sorry, I am not assuming that this is a nurse just because it's a female character. I didn't quite no, yeah, I think it is the doctor, isn't it? because she's got a lot of details, certainly. Yeah, I missed it. But the thing about, like, I'm sorry, I can only let family visit, and then Joe has to say, well, this is fiance, so family. I agree. I absolutely think, just because you're not straight doesn't mean you shouldn't have rights of visitation and such. It felt a tiny bit, I don't know. I think they were maybe also, is in order to make sure that it was clear that Joe was an ally and would stand up for this man that he hasn't actually met before, because of, it's right, and he cares about the captain and such. Yeah, I don't know. It felt a tiny bit clumsy to me. The thing is that so far they've done a great job just, not making a big deal of the fact that the captain is, not straight, because there's nothing wrong with it. It's sometimes when you talk about, non-straight behavior, you'll have like homophobes being like, it's not natural. Well, see, that's actually something it would be difficult for you to be any more wrong about, because there's gay behavior all over, like, nature. Like, there's so many animals who engage in homosexuality. So that's like, and I'm not saying that means that, like, obviously there are things that animals do that I don't think humans should. I'm just saying it's a really, really bad argument that shows that you haven't actually done your own research, that that's just something you say so you feel like you can get away with going against science. But up until this point, they'll drop it in, a line here and there, and to be clear, it was only that bit about, no, it's only family. Well, fiance equals family. That just felt a little on the nose. I absolutely do not have a problem with stuff like very openly getting into LGBTQ plus, and representation that helps normalize it is wonderful. Some of my favorite recent movies that I've watched and done videos on are of, I believe the movie's called Crush, and also Fire Island. Yeah, I think that does bring us to the next thing. Let's see. The other thing, yeah, I know there was at least one more thing, but what was it? Fantastic cliffhanger. I can hardly wait to see what happens next. And yeah, I think that does actually cover everything in the episode. Yeah, if Iris really is going to have to cover, I don't know how. I think it's going to be a real challenge for her to keep things, like, we already have, Linda really saw through, and realized what was actually going on with Iris and Barry. Iris? Aries? I guess it would be berries. Anyway, yeah, that's a cute way to name their ship. Anyway, yeah. I am just real quick. Well, I guess we'll see how quick it ends up being, but I'm going to recommend some YouTube videos before closing out the video. So there's so many. I think I'm just going to speed run, so feel free to slow it down. Genetically modified skeptic. Yes, American Christianity is racist on purpose. Anthony Gramuglia, you forgot this faithful Resident Evil adaptation for one good reason. Ryan Hollinger, the disturbing short film that inspired Obsession. Little Shop of Ali, the petty misogyny of Sam Levinson. Matt Bernstein, the Tucker Carlson problem with Naomi Klein. Tom Nicholas, how Israel is dividing Eurovision. Lynn Saga, anti-woke gays aren't it. Cat Black, he didn't want to sit next to a trans woman. The Tabernacle, why everyone hates Israeli tourists. and Sybil Cabot homophobic memes that make me want to fake the moon landing so I can pretend I'm somewhere else. All well worth your time. And yeah, also really great when so Mark, he said that Joe was lucky that it was one broken leg, and notes that when he crashed, every bone in his body broke. It was excruciating. So I guess it's about a tenth as bad as trying to make sense of what Donald Trump is saying.